Bobby Isaac, the pole sitter for the Alabama 500, is now leading the race with about 90 laps to go. In second place, David Pearson. In third place, Bobby Allison, and Buddy Baker is in fourth place at blistering speeds. Championship Auto Racing. The Alabama 500 live from the Alabama International Motor Speedway. This ABC Sports exclusive is brought to you by Gatorade, the remarkable new drink that's absorbed faster to quench thirst faster. That's why Gatorade is the professional thirst quencher. By the makers of fine STP products, STP gas treatment and STP oil treatment. And by Goodyear, the only makers of long-wearing polyglass tires. The Alabama International Motor Speedway is the world's fastest closed course. It measures 2.66 miles. And today, 40 cars started this 500-mile grind at speeds that were truly astounding. 13 cars qualified at speeds in excess of 190 miles an hour. And at the end of this punishing 500 miles is a purse of $138,000 with more than $26,000 to the winner. And the leader right now is Bobby Allison in car number 22, battling it out with Bobby Isaac for the lead. And here is Bobby Allison, who won a couple of weeks ago at Atlanta, driving for Mario Rossi in his Dodge Daytona Charger, a bullet-nose car with that high fin up on the back. He qualified fourth today at a speed of 197 miles an hour. And right now he leads Buddy Baker, who is in second place, the holder of the world's closed course record of better than 200 miles an hour in his Dodge Daytona Charger. And David Pearson in a Ford Talladega is one lap down. He is in third place. 100 laps of 188 laps have been completed, and that is the official order right now, as Bobby Allison, Buddy Baker battle for the lead on the same lap. We have had fantastic speeds we knew we were going to have. On lap number 22, for instance, CALE Yarborough in car number 21, 69 Mercury, turned it in at 199.080 miles an hour. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Fleming, your host for ABC's new Championship Auto Racing series. This is the first of 4 specials which we'll be bringing you during the next 9 weeks. We think we have a great variety of auto racing in store for you. You really couldn't have picked a better spot to inaugurate the series than here at the Alabama International Motor Speedway, the world's fastest race course. On May the 10th, we'll be taking you to that fabulous city of Monte Carlo for the Grand Prix of Monaco. Then on May the 24th, it'll be more Grand National Racing, NASCAR Championship Racing from the Charlotte Motor Speedway, the World 600. Then on the 14th of June, it'll be the Canadian American Challenge Cup Series from Mosport, Ontario, Canada. Right now, everybody is chasing this man on the left of your screen and chasing him at speeds that, quite frankly, 10 years ago, we really couldn't have dreamed of. But of course, 10 years ago, we couldn't have dreamed the fact that we would be taking our 3rd trip to the moon. But I really believe that if you equate auto racing and space travel, the two have come along just as rapidly during this past decade. During the course of this race today, you'll be meeting Bob Montgomery, who will be working the pit area for you. And right now, our racing expert, Keith Jackson, is standing by to bring us up to date on what's happened up till now. Keith?
Bill, I'll try to outshout this cacophony of sound here at Talladega and explain to you why we have such tremendous speeds. We have had a total of 25 laps under the yellow, which has cut the race average down so far. But Bobby Allison and Buddy Baker are really sprinting right now, and the speeds when they are running have been in excess of 190 miles an hour. And let's take a look at a model of the track here at the Alabama International Motor Speedway, and I think you'll see why. This straight run here is the pit road. Here is your start-finish line. This is a 16-degree banking, 17-degree banking along the run here. It drops off to 8 degrees, then they go into the tight corners. And this is a cutaway of the model to give you an idea of how highly banked these corners are. Now down here in the bottom groove, it is 0 degrees. That's 12 feet wide. It is 17 degrees right here. That's 12 feet wide. But up here, you've got 48 feet on this spacious track that runs up to 33 degrees. And this is why they're able to maintain tremendous speeds through the turns. After they come off the turn, they go onto that long back straight. They can reach speeds in excess of 210 miles an hour as they come streaking down into this highly banked turn, 33 degrees, finishing the tri-oval run. Everybody thought when we came here it was going to be one of the fast tracks in the all-time NASCAR stock car racing, and it's certainly proven to be the case right now. And there's certainly no reason to expect that what the people who set on the grid for the start today won't be very much in the finish. Now here is the way they started this afternoon in the Alabama 500. Bobby Isaac, number 71, qualifying just a fraction under 200 miles an hour, number 71. He started on the pole inside. David Pearson, number 17, started on the outside. This car, Bobby Isaacs, has now dropped back to third position. Charlie Glotzbach was inside behind the pole sitter at the start this morning, but number 22, sitting outside behind David Pearson, that's Bobby Allison. He is now leading the race. So Bobby Allison, who started actually in fourth spot outside, is now in the lead. Buddy Baker, who started number 3 on the inside lane, is now in second place. So we've still got all the big boys running hard and very much in the fight with car number 22, Bobby Allison, car number 6, Buddy Baker, putting on the duel right here, and Bobby Isaac, number 71, is running third. Now let's pick up the action with Bill Fleming.
All right, thank you very much, Keith. So that kind of brings you up to date as how things stand right now with Bobby Allison holding about a 9-second lead. Now on that last lap, Bobby Isaac moved into second place ahead of Buddy Baker. So those two are having quite a battle going for the number 2 spot, chasing Bobby Allison, who won, as I mentioned, the Atlanta 500 in record-breaking time in his 69 Dodge Daytona a couple of weeks ago. So right now, at the end of 100 laps, we had an average speed of 146.020 miles an hour. We have had 3 caution lights, 2 because of blown engines, and 1 because of something a spectator threw out onto the track. So 25 laps total of caution where they're running down in speeds of 120 miles an hour. It brought that really down quite a ways. At this point, Bobby Allison, Buddy Baker, and Pete Hamilton is the official word now from the NASCAR scoring headquarters. Now, we may have a little bit of confusion as we go along because of a rash of pit stops that were made under the yellow. And I think we can get into that a little bit later on because there is quite a story of tires here today, being that this is kind of an experimental race with tires. A brand new tire was developed by Goodyear for this Talladega race that's 10 3/4 inches wide, believe it or not. And there is the battle for second. Check that now. That's Baker on the left. That's Buddy Baker. And he's being followed by Isaac, who is 1 lap down. Pete Hamilton in car number 40, according to NASCAR scoring, is in third place. But we do know definitely that Bobby Allison is in first place. And everybody is chasing him right now. Now, I started to say the cars come in, and many times they'll only get rubber on the right side, go out and take another lap if it is under the caution, and come back and get complete rubber on the left side. So this is kind of an experiment all the way along today, trying to figure out how long the tires will last, how long the fuel will go, and as a matter of fact, how long the cars can stay together. Now, Richard Brickhouse, who won the first race ever held here, the Talladega 500 back in September, blew an engine down the main straightaway here, but other than his car and I believe it was Dave Alonso, who blew an engine, we really haven't had too many mechanical problems. Our last count, we had something like 33 cars of a starting field of 40 still in the race. But to bring you up to date a little bit more in detail on that, here's Keith Jackson.
I think, Bill, one of the most revealing or unrevealing factors of the race so far is during the first 60 laps, we had no real opportunity for anybody to tell us how they were going to do today as far as the tire wear was concerned. Going into the race, everybody had planned their pit stops to come in the neighborhood of 31 up through 34 laps. That would be 4 tires and fuel. But because of the 3 caution flags and everybody ducking in to get extra tires, get extra fuel, nobody really came up with any real workable scheme of things, and we're in the process right now of finding out just how long the tires can go, whether or not the leading automobiles can run in the planned schedule of 31, 32 laps before they make a pit stop.
All right, thank you, Keith. Now let's check in with our colleague in the pits, Bob Montgomery. Bob?
Bobby Allison is leading the race, and alongside is Mario Rossi, his crew chief. Mario, how are things going?
Well, right at this time, Bob, real well. We're having minor tire problems. Now, I know that some of the people are experiencing more severe problems. Things look real good for us at this time.
How many laps are you able to get out of your tires, Bobby?
The last time we ran 33 laps.
33 laps, well, that's pretty good.
Yes, that's about 87 or 88 miles.
That's it. When will your next pit stop come, Mario?
And approximately 15 to 18 laps, Bob.
Now back to you, Bill.
Okay, fine. We'll be watching that one, and ABC's Championship Auto Racing. Live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. Bobby Allison, who qualified in 4th position, is leading this race, and Buddy Baker is about 6 seconds behind. But let's find out where Baker is in relation to Allison on the racetrack. Remember, this is 2.66 miles around. 88 laps. And Baker now is a little less than 5 seconds behind Bobby Allison. Now there's Allison on the left. And here we're coming to car number 6. So it's car number 22 leading. Here he is coming into your screen as he goes down that 4,000-foot backstretch. Bobby Allison. And Buddy Baker in car number 6 is in second place. Incidentally, Baker seemed to be the one to watch because he holds the world's record for a closed course, the first man ever to go 200 miles an hour. He did it in a NASCAR transmission test here several weeks ago when he hit 200.447 miles an hour. Now let's check the time difference between Bobby Allison and Buddy Baker. 4.6, so it looks to me, Keith, as if he is picking up about 0.2 of a second per lap.
I think it is interesting to note, too, that Buddy Baker likes to run a little lower on the track than some of the other people. In fact, when Buddy set the world record for the closed course at better than 200 miles an hour, he ran right down on the bottom groove, Bill.
Now, the question is, can these engines take this tremendous punishment? Believe it or not, these engines are turning between 7,000 and 7,500 RPMs. There is no lifting of the accelerator here at the Alabama 500. And this race course is a punishing course on all kinds of equipment, but the engines simply run flat out. Here comes Allison by the start-finish line, and we'll again check Baker to see if he is closing the interval at all, and we catch him at 4.9. He lost 1/10 of a second on the last one.
After we pass the halfway point of the race, which is 188 laps for the 500 miles, or 500.8 miles actually is what we're going to have to run. We had 3 cars running in the same lap. Bobby Allison, Buddy Baker, and Bobby Isaac, who was the pole sitter and has been in a challenging position all day, is now in the pits getting fresh rubber. And this rubber they're using today is almost like a drag slick. It is a very slick tire engineered specifically for this track and this race.
And a good, fast pit stop of only about 16 seconds for Bobby Isaac, who, keep in mind, is in 4th place, but 1 lap down before that pit stop. And we'll be staying with the race today to the very conclusion. Here comes the leader, Bobby Allison, to the pit, so let's watch this pit crew at work. Mario Rossi, the crew chief. Let's see what they do. The rubber comes out on the left side. They can only jack up one side at a time. Let's see which side goes up first. The right side, fuel goes in. Incidentally, these gas tanks have a 22-gallon capacity.
Also today, Bill, because they're changing all 4 tires so many times, they have waived the rule of only having 5 men over the pit wall. Today they have 6 at work.
Now the left rubber goes on. This has been 30 seconds so far.
In trying to keep the clocks on the cars when they have made the stop for 4 tires, 4 pieces of rubber, it has taken generally in the neighborhood of 43 seconds for the efficient cruise.
Now you'll notice there is no glass in these cars. The new NASCAR rule says that the glass was taken out on the side windows. They have a little screen there that they have. This was done to keep the glass off the track, to keep the tires from being cut and so forth. So he's out after a stop of about 50 seconds. Here comes David Pearson in, and David is 1 lap down, running in 7th place right now in his Ford Talladega. I don't know what happened to Bobby Allison, but he is backing up. he hit the, started to go onto the main chute out of the apron, and Allison is backing up. Well, this could be a real major mechanical problem. His pit crew frantically looking down there.
The yellow light is on.
I think he just killed the engine. The yellow caution light is out.
I see nothing on the track to warrant the caution, so perhaps it does have something to do with Allison at the end of pit road.
It's hard to speculate exactly what it is. We'll get official word from NASCAR, but all of a sudden, Bobby started to back up, as you saw. And whether he killed his engine going out, it just remains to be seen. There's the caution light blinking, and of course all cars must hold their relative position. Now here's where everything happens. It's Grand Central Station in the pits. All the pit crews are standing out there holding up signs, getting ready for their drivers to come on in. Rubber chunks, according to the official NASCAR word, are on the track. Of course, anything on the track at speeds of 200 miles an hour could be disastrous, and so the cars will start to make their parade. Baker coming in, who was the leader after Allison had gone out. Now the Baker car will come into the pits. The Cotton Owens bullet-nosed, T-tailed Dodge Daytona Charger.
I think on this mesh screen that they have in there, a lot of the people felt that this might cut down some on the communication with their pit people, particularly in trying to negotiate the track at these remarkable speeds and look for directions and instructions from the pit. But so far, there has been no apparent problem. And under the yellow caution light, this being the fourth one we have had so far in the race, everybody ducks in to take on rubber and gas.
And Allison in for the second time on a consultation with his crew. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. The caution light came out at 118 laps with 70 laps to go. Speed slowing way down here. Right now, because tires seem to be such a big story here, let's go to Bob Montgomery, who discusses the tire developed specifically for this Talladega track. Bob?
Automobile racing tires are different from automobile passenger tires. The culprit for the last race, they said, was tires. The Goodyear engineers came up with a new design, a new tire. This is a cutaway right here. This tire is 5/32 of an inch as compared with 11/32 of an inch for a regular passenger tire. The reason that it is less is to dissipate heat. This will give you an idea of what these drivers are on out here today. Of course, inside this is an inner liner for safety. This is the surface, almost smooth. This hole right here is used to measure how much tread is left and to take tire temperatures. Richard Petty had a good comment about this tire and the smoothness. Richard said if anybody leaned out the window and spat on the track, somebody could spin out because of the dampness.
Good comment, Bob. Thank you very much. Richard Petty had 50 tires mounted and available for this race, and Glenwood had 30 ready for CALE Yarborough, so they were anticipating quite a bit of tire usage here. And as far as the cars themselves are concerned, I'm particularly impressed with the way the engines have held up. As I mentioned, these engines turn between 7,000 and 7,500 RPM constantly. They drive 500 miles here. That's equal to about 50,000 miles on the highway. And as the cars come around here, it's just a question of how long the cars were in the pits and which ones were. But I think we could actually hazard a guess that Buddy Baker or Pete Hamilton, whichever comes by first, would be the leader of the race. Bob, do you have another word down there?
Yes, very much so, Bill. We just checked with Mario Rossi and his pits. As you know, Bobby Allison developed some trouble. We went to Mario and said, Mario, what's wrong? He said, Bob, it looks like we have some engine problems. He was leading. He came in for a pit stop. He went back out. He has problems. That's the story on Bobby Allison.
Okay, Bob, if you can find out what actually happened there at the end of pit row from Mario, we'd certainly appreciate it, and why he started to back up.
I think, too, Bill, as we get into that 120, 125 lap area, the attrition is really going to start to take its effect. And As everybody knew coming into this particular race today, it's a whole new ball game. Nobody knew a great deal about the track, and nobody really knew how the equipment, how long it could run, and how effective it could be at these remarkable speeds.
While we're on Richard Petty's car here, we might note that both Richard Petty and Pete Hamilton have had their chassis readjusted during the course of this race, and that is what they're doing again. So it's been really more of a handling problem, I would say, for the Petty Plymouth Superbirds than anything else today. They've been running rather smoothly, engine-wise, but handling was a mystery to them, just exactly how to set up a car. You know, it's running in traffic is quite a bit different than running out there with 39 other automobiles. The aerodynamics at speeds of 190 plus are quite a bit different than running alone, let's say, in qualifying.
Plus the fact many of the drivers felt that opening both of the windows alongside of them, putting that mesh screen in there, let much more air come in, created a little bit of noise for them, thereby stopping their ability to really feel a tire when it went bad, or perhaps even not having the ability at these speeds to read their instruments. Buddy Baker said he couldn't see the tachometer.
The green is out, and the safety car has pulled off, and here they come. It is Buddy Baker in the lead. In second place is Pete Hamilton, and in third place is Bobby Allison, according to the NASCAR control. However, I think we better check the Allison one because he came in 3 times, twice under the caution. But we do know that Buddy Baker and Pete Hamilton are running 1 and 2. It may very well have been that Allison did get out in time without relinquishing his number 3 spot. He did lose a lap to the leaders, but he did not give up his 3rd position. So keep in mind that we have Buddy Baker in the lead with Pete Hamilton in 2nd place, and then in 3rd, 1 lap down. It still looks like Richard Petty's having trouble. There's smoke coming out from the back end of his car. He's just fired it up, and he has been in that pit, Pete, for almost 2 minutes. So Richard Petty, who has won more stock car races, more races than any other race driver in history, in the pits, and now he is going to be coming out onto the track once again.
He has not had a good ride. He was not that happy this morning. He was not that happy yesterday. The big grin in the Petty camp belonged to Pete Hamilton, and his place in the field indicates why.
Those of you who are following the fortunes of Leroy Yarborough and Donnie Allison, let me remind you that those 2 of the Ford's hottest drivers are not here today, due in part to the factory budget cutback. Crew Chief Junior Johnson and Banjo Matthews felt that they simply couldn't get the cars ready due to the financial pinch to get it in shape for this race. So Leroy Yarborough and Donnie Allison are not here. CALE Yarborough, who started way back at number 21 position, actually took the lead at about the 14th or 15th lap, it seems to me, on the yellow. But he has fallen way back since that time. We've had 31 laps under the yellow total so far today. There is Buddy Baker out in front. And then the 2nd place car here, number 40, is Pete Hamilton. So it's Buddy Baker in the Dodge Daytona Charger, that high-winged vehicle. And then the Plymouth Superbird. Now we might put our stopwatch and timing device on this leader and check when Pete Hamilton comes by. It looks to be 3 or 4 seconds difference. A word from the Allison crew is that they suspect some valve trouble. All right. Now, when the clock stops, 1.7. Wow, that could develop into something because Pete Hamilton, who was a surprise winner in the Daytona 500 back in February, just stroked his car along for 300 miles back in 3rd or 4th spot and then moved up and was the surprising winner of that race. And that's really what he's been doing here today. He's a former Grand National Touring ace. He's 27 years old and comes from Dedham, Massachusetts. Qualified at 194, 361 in the number 6 position. And he is chasing Buddy Baker right now, who is driving that car number 6, the Cotton Owens prepared Dodge Daytona. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. Buddy Baker turned the last lap at 195 plus miles an hour. He is in the lead by about a second and a half over Pete Hamilton. As this race, the Alabama 500, is coming to you live from the Alabama International Motor Speedway in Talladega, Alabama, before a crowd of 53,000 fans. 2.8. Now Baker is picking up a little bit on Pete Hamilton, the second place car right now, and there is CALE Yarborough, who is going to be lapped for the second time if Baker gets around him. CALE is in third place, but he might be 2 laps down. There is the second place car, number 40, the Plymouth Superbird, the Petty Blue, driven by Pete Hamilton. And now here comes Bobby Allison into the pit once again, and that could be the end of things. That's all. He's not even going to stop. He goes right to the garage.
So with him out, we also add the name Charlie Glotzback. Charlie is out with a blown engine. So 2 of the big horses in this race, Bobby Allison, who won the Atlanta 500, and Charlie Glotzback are both out with blown equipment.
Right, and Charlie Glotzback in that car number 99, prepared by Nichols Engineering with Paul Goldsmith as the crew manager out. It had made 7 stops for 15 tires, and at one point in the race had actually led. Now let's go down to Bob Montgomery, who is at Buddy Baker's pit, and get the story from him.
And right alongside me is a man who set up that world's fastest automobile on a closed course, over 200 miles an hour. And Buddy Baker's doing pretty good out here today in this open window model, Cotton.
Yes, we have a lap lead over everybody except Pete Hamilton, who's in second place. And if we can have just a little luck, maybe we can win it.
What's the fastest lap you clocked, Buddy, today?
He run right at 199 plus.
Cotton, are you having any problems? Any problems with tires or what?
We got a slight problem, yes, but we're coping with it. We're staying right there within striking distance. But right now he's leading the race and not setting the world on fire either.
Cotton Owens himself, a one-time great race driver, crew chief on Buddy Baker's automobile, which is in the lead. Now back to you, Bill.
All right, Buddy Baker qualified at the number 5 position inside pole of the third row with a speed of 195.660 miles an hour. But as mentioned, he is the first man ever to go over 200 miles an hour on a closed course. His timing for that was 47.773 miles an hour, and we might just be able to get a timing on 1 lap for Buddy Baker just to see how he's cruising now. Unofficially, we've got him about 3.4 seconds ahead of Pete Hamilton, which means that he is picking up about 0.4 of a second per lap, and that is quite a bit at speeds of 195 miles an hour.
He's right at 3 seconds now on him, Bill.
3 seconds, okay. There's the way things stand right now with CALE Yarborough. He is third, 1 lap back, but running with Baker on your picture. You'll see him very, very shortly. Next time around, we're going to put our timer on Buddy Baker to see how fast he's going. Now, let me just give you some kind of an indication. When he set that world's record of 200.447 miles an hour, his timing was 47.773 seconds. That's for 2.66 miles. So it gives you an idea of what he's going to have to be in that 200 mile an hour area.
I think since we're running very fast under the green, we might add this point about centrifugal force in these high turns. Paul Goldsmith told me yesterday that their engineers had checked, and it figures to be about 2.2 G-forces through the turn, so that actually a driver, when he goes through the turn, is pressed down into his seat so that his shoulder harness comes loose, but once he comes back onto the flat surface of the back straight, he pops back into his position and it becomes quite tight.
I think our viewers might be interested to know that the driver looks at 4 basic gauges. Oddly enough, not one of them is a speedometer. He has an RPM indicator, fuel pressure gauge, oil pressure, and oil temperature. Now we're coming down to the final seconds of the run by Buddy Baker on our unofficial timing. Let's see what we clock him in. 50.1. That would be 191.137 miles an hour. Give or take a mile an hour or 2 for the mechanical error that could be induced, or the human error. So they're still running 190 plus. Incidentally, in Charlie Glotzback's car, in addition to all that sophisticated instrumentation, he has taped to his dashboard a package of chewing gum. I guess he's got to stretch his coffee break or something.
It gets dry. Also, Charlie was one of the first drivers and one of the few drivers to go to that full helmet with just a visor in it, because with the windows open, you've got a good deal of rubber dust blowing through the car. However, it does help to dissipate the heat. Heat has not been a problem here today for the drivers. Perhaps it has been some for the tires, but our temperature is in the 60s. It's quite comfortable for a race.
Car number 40, driven by Pete Hamilton, NASCAR's Grand National Rookie of the Year in 1968. And a well-deserved honor for this very articulate young man from Dedham, Massachusetts. The windows are, you'll notice, are out of the car, and he has a mesh screen up there. I think you can just barely make it out, and it's sort of like a prisoner looking through at one of his visitors. But at speeds of 200 miles an hour, things can become a little bit confusing. And here's Bob Montgomery to talk to him about it.
Of Dedham, Massachusetts, is a man who's won more money so far this year than any other driver on the circuit. Pete, you are here at Talladega for a big race, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I feel real good, Bob. Not only that we've won a little money this year, but I think I've got one of the finest teams really in racing that's kind of backing me up, and that's the Petty team. I think we should run real well today.
Pete, they've removed the glass from the automobiles, that is the side windows, and have put in a wire mesh screen. First of all, how do you feel about the removal of the windows?
Well, Bob, you know, in any rule in NASCAR, perhaps one rule might be good for one person and not so good for another, but I think there are good and bad points about removing the windows. One of the reasons they took the glass out of the car was so that we wouldn't have glass on the racetrack. It would make a little safer surface to race on. But in the same token, what we have in the cars now is kind of a screen steel mesh, and it's pretty close to the driver's head. And it's a removable screen where we can take it out from the outside of the car naturally so the driver can get out. And I kind of feel that perhaps we ought to come up with something a little bit better, maybe something made out of nylon or something along that line that couldn't, this screen could actually pop inside the car. And I certainly wouldn't want that to happen to anybody.
One thing I've noticed, being on the outside, it's hard for me to see on the inside. This must work the other way, too. Is this going to give you any problem with your pits?
Well, you know, pit communication is probably one of the most important things you have in any race, and I kind of feel that, that this screen does hamper the view that the driver...
And a car in trouble. However, the green is still on, so we don't know. It says Bill Champion's car, number 10, from Norfolk, Virginia, 69 Ford, who qualified 25th in today's race. But as yet, there has not been a caution light up, so perhaps everything is okay. Just the automobile quit. Now, usually when they blow, the oil comes out on the track, especially if they break a rod or something like that, and the engine just disintegrates. Here is Bobby Isaac, who from Catawba, North Carolina, is one of the most popular drivers of all. And he is in battle right now with CALE Yarborough for third place. Now, remember, they're both a lap down to the leaders, Buddy Baker and Pete Hamilton. But car number 21, driven by CALE Yarborough, is in fourth place, chasing Bobby Isaac, who is in third. And there is the leader. That is Buddy Baker, hanging on to a lead over Pete Hamilton. And we have 50 laps to go. There's Bill Champion coming into the pits in car number 10, who apparently had the mechanical problem enough so that they can't fix it, and he's going back to the garage to try again another day. And now, let's join Bob Montgomery once again for a chat with Bobby Allison, who is out of the race.
Well, Bobby Allison, you were leading the race. You came in for what looked like a pretty normal pit stop, and then what happened?
Well, the reason I came in, Bob, is the car dropped a valve up in 3 and 4 corner, and I heard it let go. I thought it was a tire. I hadn't been able to hear the tires previously when we would tear one up, but I did hear a lot of noise and everything, and you know, the car got all out of shape and everything. So I pitted immediately, and while they were changing tires on the car, it spit some pieces of valve out of the exhaust pipe.
And that's the reason you weren't able to restart the car.
Yeah, we went back out and tried it. The car would still run about 185 on 7 cylinders. So we made the decision to go ahead and try to keep running, but then it dropped another valve. So I decided before we tore the thing up or something riding around slow out there, we may as well call it a day.
Well, Bobby, you did a tremendous job out there. You were leading when you came in for that pit stop. What do you think of the race?
Well, it's a tough race. It's difficult inside the cars at this speed with no side windows because it blows trash all around inside the car constantly. And it's hard to gauge your speed. And we saw early in the race that we just couldn't run flat out, which that's the easiest way to gauge it, is to hold it down on a track like this. So I don't know, it's a tough race, and the guy that wins it's really going to deserve it.
Bobby Allison from Hueytown, Alabama. And another day will come.
All right, thank you, Bob, and tough luck, Bobby, in being out of the race with that engine problem. The yellow caution light is out, and the flag, of course, is out. The safety car is out on the track. So we do have a caution. There was debris on the backstretch, we understand, so cars must hold their relative position at this point. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. There seems to be a problem in the pit of Buddy Baker. He has been in there for 47 seconds. Now he comes out 49 seconds. Pete Hamilton also pitted, but was out in 23. So Pete Hamilton beat him out by nearly 25 seconds, and Keith, that could be very significant.
However, Bill, Hamilton took only 2 tires, whereas Baker took all 4. And remember in Daytona, an event seen earlier on ABC television, when Pete Hamilton, under the caution flag, took 4 tires, whereas David Pearson took 2, and it was the 4-tire change that meant so much to Pete Hamilton in the final sprint for the finish and victory.
We might project here, too, a little bit about the fact that we are on lap number 141, which means that we have 43 laps to go. Now, that would seem that under the green, that they couldn't run that far on tires.
They will have to make one more stop. Let's watch Hamilton here, because he may very well be a story. He may come right back into the pits with the yellow staying out of the pace car. He may come right back and get 2 more tires.
Maurice Petty, the brother of Richard Petty, is the crew chief on that car, and that was their strategy before the race began. They said, well, we'll get 2 at one time under the yellow, then we'll get 2 the next time. So actually, if he takes 25 seconds, let's say, on this pit stop, then it would equate itself with the Buddy Baker.
Now, this time he should take the left side tires, and that's exactly what is happening. So young Pete Hamilton, the Yankee who has come south for so much success so far, looks like he has been quite a find for Lee Petty and Richard. Here's where the races are won and lost so many times.
Well, he beat it a little bit. There's 18 seconds, so perhaps with that 2-stop, an aggregate of 41 seconds at the pits, did do a little bit better than Buddy Baker. But under the caution, as I mentioned, you simply get all these stops in. There's Richard Petty's car in, and Richard hasn't really had too much luck today. He's well back in the pack. The average speed for 140 laps, 150.346 miles per hour. A year ago, when Richard Brickhouse won this race, he averaged 153.778 miles an hour. Now, if we are fortunate, we will have a new record here today. Fortunately, we don't get any more of the yellow caution lights. We might also check to see how many cars are still in the running.
You notice that Richard Petty, when he came out of the pit, there was a big puff of smoke. Well, these fellows are literally dragging down pit road these days, and pit road here at Talladega is a very wide, spacious pit road, and there's been very little congestion. As a matter of fact, the entire track is very wide, 72 feet, which is larger than you would normally find.
Green is coming up. The safety car is pulling off onto the apron into the pit row, and we will be racing once again. There it is, and we're underway. Well, as they go by, Buddy Baker was ahead of Hamilton by about 2.2 seconds.
It now becomes a question, I think, probably of equipment, because here we have 2 drivers of comparable ability. Hamilton in second place, the younger of the 2, and with only a smidgen of less experience than Baker. But remember, Pete Hamilton did so very well in the Grand Touring, so he has a lot of experience on these kind of tracks.
Buddy Baker in the lead. Now remember, when the caution comes out, you cannot change your relative position on the track. As long as you get back in on the same lap behind that pace car, you can't gain any. So the only thing that could have happened in that differential of time between Baker and Hamilton would have been had the green gone on, but Hamilton did get out under the yellow. So he is still running second to Baker. Incidentally, this is the first of our 4 specials, our brand new series, ABC's Championship Auto Racing, on May the 10th via satellite we'll be bringing you the Grand Prix of Monaco for Formula One cars, then back to Charlotte for the World 600 on May the 24th. That'll be for these same cars, the National NASCAR cars, and then for the added variety, the Can-Am Series for Group 7 cars from Mosport, Ontario, Canada. That'll be June 14th. We've got a timing to see how hot Buddy Baker is running the next time he comes through. See if he's picked it up any from that 191 plus that he was running before. .4 seconds, the difference between Baker and Pete Hamilton, between first and second, and they have one lap on the other cars, which would be Bobby Isaac, Cale Yarborough, and also David Pearson.
Cale Yarborough has now moved into the third position. He is down a lap, Bill, and it's an incredible story. He blew two engines trying to qualify, then almost burned his car up in the garage yesterday, but they managed to snuff out the fire and get it ready for the race, and he's charging just as hard as his equipment will let him.
That's Pete Hamilton in second place. I think a technical note might be added here, too, as far as Cale Yarborough is concerned, because I think that the big mystery in that car, number 21, was just exactly how rich or how lean to run it. Now, when you're running at Daytona, the drivers do lift the accelerator a little bit going into the turns, although some of them won't admit it. They do just lift the shade. It does cool the engine, allows the engine to breathe. Here you don't lift at all. It's just flat out. You put your foot down and keep it there. And, of course, the cars are running much hotter. So what they're doing here is running a lot richer mixture, and they didn't really know that until the early part of the week when they burned two pistons. So after they burned it, because it's too lean a mixture, they enriched it, and they hope that that is the combination. So there is Cale leading David Pearson in that battle. Pearson, incidentally, is a lap behind, and I'm looking for Bobby Isaac because it's Isaac and Cale who are battling for the number 3 spot. Pearson is one lap down. Pearson is in 17. Cale Yarborough is in car number 21, and Bobby Isaac, the pole sitter, is in car number 71. There it is, Baker and Hamilton on the same lap, and Isaac and Yarborough a lap down, and Pearson 2 down. Trying to pick up Baker to get a clocking on him. I want to see just exactly how fast he is running, because he may try to not run it flat out so he can hold it together. After all, these are the critical miles. We are on lap number 145. We have 188 in total. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. Buddy Baker turned the last lap at 189 miles an hour. Pete Hamilton is behind him by several seconds. Then Bobby Isaac. And David Pearson, we understand now, has moved ahead of Cale Yarborough. Buddy Baker coming by the home stands here. We'll take a check on him to see how he's doing as far as intervals. He's got about a 5.5 second lead now on Pete Hamilton. We pause now for 5 seconds to allow our stations to identify themselves. Pete Hamilton still chasing Buddy Baker. Pete Hamilton, car number 40 in that Plymouth Superbird in the petty blue colors. And Buddy Baker in that wing Dodge Daytona, designed aerodynamically for these speeds. And we'll check the timing between first and second as they come by. We unofficially had it about 5.5 seconds on the last lap. And we'll see if Pete Hamilton is gaining any on his adversary, Buddy Baker. That timing, I believe, is an error. I think we timed car number 43, which is in the same color as Pete Hamilton, car number 40.
Bill, I think it might be interesting to recall the general comment that you can actually draft here as much as a quarter mile away. You begin to pick up the draft. So when you start thinking slingshot on this particular track, you don't have to think in terms of 15, 20, 30 feet. You can think in terms of yards, and that may be something to tuck away in the back of your mind if this duel between Baker and Hamilton stays as it is.
Now here comes Buddy Baker by, and we'll get a clocking on him. First blue car through will be Petty, and then Hamilton, car number 40. Petty's in 43, Hamilton in 40. 3.9. Well, it does pick up a little bit on Hamilton. The question is, can it hold together? That is really what is in the mind of everybody in the crew right now as they anxiously look around the track, keeping their stopwatches, wanting to know how fast are they running. The question is now, can the other drivers back of the leaders, Bobby Isaac, CALE Yarborough, David Pearson, can they make up enough ground? Actually, what they have to hope for here is for something to happen to those lead cars, because right now we are on lap number 151, which means we have 37 laps to go. And I think Hamilton is picking up even more. Looks like the interval has lessened, doesn't it, Keith?
Yes, he has. He's picked up 0.3 of a second.
Incidentally, during the season of 1969, NASCAR paid out over $5 million in prize money, which was more than $1 million more than in 1968. And if you don't think these drivers make a lot of money, I tell you, they are well over that $150,000, $180,000, $200,000 mark during the course of a year, with all the extras thrown in. I guess you could equate it somewhat to the golfers, but these drivers have a chance, for instance, today to make $26,000 to win this race. Now let's check on the timing between Buddy Baker, the leader, and Pete Hamilton, who looks to be gaining on every lap. CALE Yarborough, incidentally, is coming into the pits, and it's less than 2 seconds now that Pete Hamilton is behind Baker. And CALE Yarborough in the pits. Let's see what the problem is. It could be a real problem. They're not jacking the car up, which is a normal routine. Definitely mechanical.
Or perhaps even worse, Bill, electrical.
CALE Yarborough, 31 years old, from Timminsville, South Carolina, in that 69 Mercury Cyclone. After winning 6 races in 1968 and a whopping $138,000.
Windscreen, CALE Yarborough's car, shattered. They're going to put another one in there, and
it looked like it caved right in.
Yes, it did. Well, you know, you get fantastic pressure build up at these speeds on the windscreen.
Yes, earlier in the day, one of the drivers came in. I believe it was Ron Keselowski of Troy, Michigan, and he actually got out of his car and smashed the rear window, perhaps to try to get away from that vacuum that he felt was building up. Yarborough out. Buddy Baker still in that lead, and we are sure that he knows that Pete Hamilton is breathing right down his neck. Okay, let's see how things are going from a technical standpoint. Down to the Baker pit and Bob Montgomery.
Well, the strategy is really going on here, Bill. Todd Nolan says one more pit stop. They've given Buddy the easy side. They'd like for him to drive about 189 miles an hour. That's a word. One more pit stop in Buddy Baker's pit crew. On CALE Yarborough's automobile and that windshield, the report came earlier that a bottle had hit the windshield and broke the glass. They had taped it up earlier. Now back to you, Bill.
All right, Bob. Of course, that would be a most unfortunate thing if a spectator or somebody would throw something onto the track at these great speeds.
It could produce at these speeds, Bill, a catastrophe. It's incredible that anybody would be so inconsiderate.
Let's see now, as Bob Montgomery reported, his crew wanting Buddy Baker to stroke it here. We'll see how he is doing as far as time is concerned. He still has a 1.9 second lead over Pete Hamilton, but we'll see how he's running. Unofficially, we had him at 189 miles an hour a little earlier, and tell you what, on this time around, why don't you take Buddy Baker, Keith, and I'll take Hamilton, and we'll see exactly what they're running. Maybe we can come up with something in terms of total speed. That's the distance between the two cars. There's the blue car chasing him, and it does seem as if he's closing the gap a little bit on Buddy Baker. Very few of these fans are taking it sitting down. Now as we come to the closing phases of the race, we have 32 laps to go. And Pete Hamilton is picking up a little bit of ground each lap on Buddy Baker. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. "30 laps to go, and Buddy Baker hanging on to a slim lead over Pete Hamilton. Buddy Baker in the Cotton Owens prepared car. And let's see, what did he turn the last one in?
Keith, my reflexes may not be what they once were, but I have Buddy Baker at 191.37 miles an hour and Pete Hamilton at 191.75. So he's gaining ever so fractionally on the leader, Baker.
Incidentally, next week on ABC's Wide World of Sports, these same cars and drivers will be in action live once again from the North Wilkesboro Speedway. That race will be carried live on Wide World of Sports. So we hope you'll join us on that one. And this is the timing on Buddy Baker to see how fast he's going.
If he were running 190, which is what perhaps Mario Rossi would like, Cotton Owens would like him to do, it would be about 50.2 seconds. Actually, 190 on the nose is 50.4. .8, all right, that's a little bit faster, 192.282.
I'm anxious to see what the Petty crew is signaling too. And Bob Montgomery, if you're standing by, I think we might get a story on how they feel Pete Hamilton should do. I think we did a good job of covering on the Baker strategy. We might also try to get the same thing from Petey. After all, he's the man who is chasing.
It takes tremendous strength and endurance in this kind of automobile racing, Bill. I think pointing out the fact that CALE Yarborough is out there submitting himself to tremendous buffeting with no windshield and running right at 190 miles an hour. He has no windshield in his car, so you can imagine the tremendous force that's blowing full in his face.
Yes, the only thing he has is that crash helmet with the goggle on it. Incidentally, CALE had a little trouble in the last race of the year in 1969, hitting the wall at Texas, and had a shoulder problem, but came right back here, and I'm sure that is going to be a mighty sore shoulder tonight when he finishes 500 miles. And as far as the pit crews are concerned, the Petty crew said that they felt that after a race like this, that they would go to bed at night feeling like they had dug ditches all day long. Handling those 55-pound wheels and tires as many times as they've handled them, boy, it gets to be a load.
Jack weighs 56, 57 pounds, too.
Let's check Buddy Baker now and see if Pete Hamilton is picking up anything at all on Buddy Baker, the leader. We've had, at the halfway mark, believe it or not, 23 different lead changes. That was at the halfway mark. And now with 27 laps to go, Buddy Baker has pretty well latched onto the lead with a 3-second lead over Pete Hamilton. And that would seem to be the battle right now. Although, of course, anything can happen late in an automobile race, whether it's metal fatigue, tire fatigue, or driver fatigue. All right, let's check them as they come by the start-finish line. It's going to be about 3.4 seconds. Buddy Baker with about a 3.5-second lead over Pete Hamilton, and we have 26 laps to go. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume right after this message. Buddy Baker still in the lead, being chased by Pete Hamilton. and then Bobby Isaac is in third place. Let's go down to Bob Montgomery in the pit area and get a report now on Pete Hamilton.
Standing here in Pete Hamilton's pit, Maurice Petty, very busy right now, as you can see, standing right here in front of me. Maurice is watching his boy Pete Hamilton very closely. Maurice tells me he'll be coming in just about 8 more laps for that final pit stop. Pete Hamilton, who is riding in the number 2 position. The strategy is really going on between Baker and the Pettys, and we'll have to wait till the end of the race to see how it's going to work out. That's it from the Petty crew.
All right, thank you, Bob. And while you were talking there, both David Pearson and Cale Yarborough pitted. Pearson is 2 laps back, and Cale lost a considerable amount of time earlier when they had that windshield problem. There's the windshield that was smashed unaccountably.
Buddy Baker has stretched his lead now, Bill, to almost 6 seconds over Pete Hamilton.
I think one interesting thing, too, that we might pick up, according to NASCAR scoring, car number 71, Bobby Isaac, who set a new qualifying record for this race. He was the pole sitter. He qualified at 199.658 miles an hour, has now moved into the same lap as Baker and Pete Hamilton. So let's see how far back he is. Baker just coming by the start-finish line. That, incidentally, is where the flagman is. 7 seconds now between those two. Now let's pick up car number 71 to see where he is. Well, it looks about 15 seconds back. That's not too bad.
16.
There's Bobby Isaac. He is on the same lap, remember, and running third as Buddy Baker and Pete Hamilton. The fans started pouring into the infield at 8 o'clock last night when the tunnel was open. They camp out as they do at all these great races and have really a wonderful weekend out of it. We had a tremendous threat of rain earlier in the day. In fact, it poured all morning and had very low ceilings. And it was just about noon here when all of a sudden the sky started to brighten and everybody cheered a bit, and the track dried off in a relatively short period of time, and the race was underway, and we haven't had any weather problems since that time. A little on the cool side. Did you clock Isaac, Keith, on the last time around? What's he running?
182.96.
That may not be good enough. The leader is running about 10 mile an hour faster. You know, you look at these Dodge Daytona Chargers, these winged machines, and the spoilers in the back and in the front. And I think we might take a little bit closer look at these cars and how they operate. So let's join Keith Jackson for a little demonstration of that. Keith?
In recent years, as the speeds have increased so dramatically on the racetracks around the country, there's been a growing concern over aerodynamics in automobiles. Let's take a quick look here at a couple of diagrams to give you an idea of how the principle of aerodynamics is being used in applying spoilers or wings to these automobiles. Now, we'll look here at the Dodge and the Mercury, since they represent similar ideas. The Dodge and the Plymouth both use this high spoiler on the rear of the car, and they have a small spoiler here on the front of their sharp-pointed nose. Now, this little spoiler right here, at speeds in excess of 150 miles an hour, can mean up to 300 pounds of additional pressure on the front of the car to keep it down. A tremendous pocket of pressure builds up right here on the windscreen. It breaks off, the air flows over the top of the car. Then this spoiler comes into play, putting pressure on the rear wheels. Now, this wing, which is actually made like an inverted aircraft wing, tilted at 1.5 degrees at 150 plus miles an hour, can mean up to 400 pounds of pressure on the rear or driving wheels of the car. Now, the Ford's and Mercury spoiling system is a little bit different. They have the tiny thing up here in front that, again, takes the air in. It does two things. It cools, for one thing, and then pulls the nose of the car down. You break up the pressure pocket here. It flows over the roof of the car, and now you have a very tiny little spoiler back here in comparison to the other one. This little spoiler actually interrupts the consistent flow of air, and at 180 miles an hour, if you didn't have something here to break up the flow of air, this portion of the car actually could create a vacuum from the airflow and lift it up. But because of the spoiler, the pressure is reversed or inverted and puts down onto the rear wheels, giving solid driving traction to the automobile. So that.
And we have a new leader now as Buddy Baker has pulled in for what he hopes to be the final pit stop of the day for rubber on the right side. Let's see if he does it on the left. Pete Hamilton went flying by. And the question will be now, when will Hamilton come in? Now they're going to change rubber on the left side. Want to make very, very sure with 17 laps to go that will not have an 8-tire problem. We started this clock when Buddy Baker came into the pit. Now, they thought that a real fine pit stop would be anywhere between 40 and 45 seconds. Well, not bad, 43.2, but it'll give you something to go on to see what happens with the Petty crew when Pete Hamilton has to come in. If they can beat that, of course, it could be the difference in winning and losing. And I think, Keith, don't you agree that everybody said that the real story of this race is going to be in the pits?
No question about it. And Buddy Baker's group of people, right along with the Petty people, rank as probably the top 5 pit people in the country. And the fact that they were able to get 6 men over the wall today to help in handling the tires has been a great asset for them, no question about it. I think probably it saved each pit stop as much as 5 seconds on the average. When you start horsing those big wheels and tires and 55-pound jacks around, it gets pretty tiresome. Here comes Hamilton.
Right, Hamilton coming in, and it'll give us an opportunity now to see how well the Maurice Petty crew does on that Plymouth Superbird as he comes in. Car number 40 relinquishing the lead, and when Buddy Baker comes by this time, if he does before Hamilton gets out, of course, he will be in the lead. So we'll keep our eyes both on Pete Hamilton and also on Baker. 23 out of the original 40 cars are out on the track, and Buddy Baker has come by. He has regained the lead. I believe Bobby Isaac is also going to pit. That is the 3rd place car. And here comes Pete Hamilton out.
As he moves down pit road, heading for the track to reach speed again, he's approaching 30 seconds behind Buddy Baker as he goes onto the track. He is 32 seconds back of Baker.
I think really what has happened, I think that Baker went by this time, Keith, and has to come around again, so he did beat him out, and I believe he has a lead on Baker. We'll check that with NASCAR, but here comes Baker by, and he is still chasing Hamilton. That is right. He is chasing Hamilton. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. I know, but we can play it back, can we? Driver's out. Okay. Woohoo. Well, that just about does it for Pete. He can stroke it. Just moments ago, Buddy Baker's car came down the home chute and was a blaze. It had caught on fire. Miraculously, he jammed on the brakes and kept the car from spinning. There was smoke all over the place, spun it into the infield and got out. He's okay. He's apparently got a hurt right leg, but we were very grateful to see him come flying out of that right window. In fact, it looks like maybe the leg was on fire, Keith.
I think it was,
He's
Bill.
got the fireproof clothing on, which, of course, would protect him. But all of a sudden, that car was just absolutely on fire. And he is burned on the right ankle or on the right part of the leg. Let's just take a look at what happened. All of a sudden, he came down. He was running fine, and we looked down there, and the car was absolutely ablaze. It was just kind of unbelievable. Everybody was gasping. And here's what happened as we show you the tape. Car was on fire. He spun it around, and that, my friends, shows coolness, if you excuse the pun, under fire.
What may have happened, he may have, as you see, the car is burning. It's still burning, and there he comes out of the car as we go back to the videotape. Now, if you take hot oil or something like that, could possibly have ruptured, oil line may have ruptured in the car and been the reason for the sustained blaze.
And of course, it's just like a furnace, a blast furnace in there at 200 or 190 miles an hour, fanning that blaze, and he knew the thing he had to do was to get that car stopped to keep it from becoming a blowtorch. Incidentally, for the information of our local stations, we will be staying on to the conclusion of this race. We have 11 laps to go, and we will be giving you your local station breaks when we have the opportunity to do it. The fire's been put out, but isn't that a rather sad ending for Buddy Baker, who is the world record holder of a closed course over 200 miles an hour. He was battling it out for the lead with Pete Hamilton. He was only 14 seconds behind Hamilton. And now the question is, Hamilton is ahead of Isaac on the same lap, and David Pearson is 1 lap down.
The yellow light, however, the caution light, is going to help Bobby Isaac, Bill.
Yes, it's a very good point to make because he can pick up ground. In other words, you can't pass the man in front of you, but you can pick up a great deal of distance on him. You can actually come right up and ride right on the rear portion of the automobile. So Pete Hamilton will undoubtedly be getting quite a bit of coaxing from Bobby Isaac as the Cotton Owens wing Dodge Charger in a blaze goes out of this race. And fortunately, Buddy Baker did get out, although as you saw, it does appear as if Buddy was burned or hurt on his right leg.
Pete Hamilton back in the pits.
Right, let's take a look as they check it out. There, of course, is what they call racing luck. Pete only taking on one side of rubber. That means that Bobby Isaac, at this point, will go into the lead. Now the question is, and Bob Montgomery may be standing by, how about Bobby Isaac? How about the rubber on his car? How about his fuel? Is he going to have to come in? If he doesn't have to come in, of course, he's got it in pretty good shape.
Hamilton on his way very quickly.
A little over 20 seconds for Pete Hamilton in the pits. Yarborough pits. David Pearson is in. Brooks is in. Well, I don't believe I've ever seen a car at flat-out speed without hitting anything just absolutely burst into flame like that.
I can only recall one time earlier this year when Sam Posey did that at Riverside in the first major NASCAR race of the year. Came in on a sheet of flame and in the pit straight blew it out in a spin.
ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after station identification. Bobby Isaac just snuggled right in there behind the caution car, car number 71. Bobby Isaac in 71, right up behind the caution car. He's the first one there. And, gee, this just brings all kinds of speculation to our mind. If, for instance, there was enough oil and the oil dry wasn't spread on in time to get a green before we ended, we only have 9 laps to go. It is conceivable that the race could end on the yellow flag. And, of course, it would be a great stroke of luck, racing luck for Bobby Isaac. He's not having to run very fast here, and, of course, no strain. Fuel might be a problem. I think we might be able to check back and see. Perhaps Bob Montgomery would know whether there was a contemplated fuel stop for Bobby. This would be a very popular victory if he were to win it. He was voted the most popular driver of the 1969 season on the Grand National Circuit.
He won 17 races last year, but only one of them was on what might be considered a super speedway. That was the finale down at Bryan, Texas. But he is really something on the shorter tracks. This would be his second major super speedway win.
Yes, in all, he won 17 Grand National races in 1969. So the way things stand right now, with the cars on the 180th of 188 laps, because of the fire that broke out to the car of Buddy Baker and his subsequent dropping out of the race, and because of the caution light that came out when that car did catch on fire and spewed oil all over the track, we do have a caution, and we have Bobby Isaac taking the lead with Pete Hamilton in second place. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message. The yellow caution light is still on, and the cars have dropped in behind the safety car. Car number 71, driven by Bobby Isaac of Catawba, North Carolina. The wing Dodge Daytona, prepared by Harry Hyde, is still in the lead. The most significant development during the last minute or so came from NASCAR scoring headquarters, where they keep a tape of all of these cars, and each person is assigned to that tape, and only one person to a car. They indicate that at this point Hamilton is leading Bobby Isaac. Now, they have given us a standby on that so that they can check the tape to make sure that they are correct. But if that is the case, then Pete Hamilton would be almost, well, not quite a lap, but almost a lap ahead of Bobby Isaac. And so what's the story? Have you heard anything more from that area, Keith?
I'll tell you this, if that is true, that Hamilton does have the lead, and with that much traffic between him and Bobby Isaac, there is no way, barring misfortune for Hamilton, that Isaac would ever catch him with only 8 laps to go, and we're still under yellow. The oil dry is still on the track, so it's conceivable this race could finish under yellow.
Right, and it is now official from NASCAR. Pete Hamilton is the leader. So because of that flurry of pit stops and because of the little confusion there that did reign for a while in scoring, NASCAR indicates that Pete Hamilton is the leader and Isaac is in second place. So stay with us. We're going to cover this right to the conclusion of the race. We are on lap number 182, I believe. A man standing in front of the sign over there.
I think, Bill, the tip-off on what we had in store for us today came in the very first lap. There were 5 lead changes in the first lap of this race.
Yes, it was almost incredible. On the first lap, Isaac and Pearson held on to the lead, just battling it out into the third turn. Then Charlie Glotzback took it. Then Buddy Baker came up there, and finally David Pearson. So they incidentally turned that lap, that first lap, at 198.260 miles an hour. Later on lap number 22, I believe it was, CALE Yarborough turned a lap at 199.080 miles an hour. So it is now official that Pete Hamilton, 27-year-old from Dedham, Massachusetts, is in the lead, and we have a green light coming on. The safety car is out, and this ought to be something to see if Pete Hamilton can hang on to the lead and if Bobby Isaac can pick up any ground on him. Now, Isaac is the #1 car out in front, but Hamilton's right behind him, and remember, if Hamilton should take him, that would mean that he would have a lap on Bobby Isaac.
At this point, let's preface everything if that tape is correct, Bill.
That is right. And thank heaven they have it. As they head down the backstretch, Isaac trying to stave off Hamilton. He doesn't want to be lapped here, if that is true. But as you see, even though he is out in front, right at that point, he is still the second-place car in the field. CALE Yarborough is a couple of laps down. He's in car number 21, and they will be completing lap number 182 here. Now, Pete Hamilton is actually the 4th car. As you look at them there, he is the 4th car back, and he is actually our leader. And in case you joined us late, Buddy Baker, who had led for the majority of the race, although we had 23 different lead changes just at the halfway mark, but he did lead more, I believe, than anybody else, caught on fire coming into the tri-oval, got out of the car okay. He's been taken as a precautionary measure to the infield hospital, but his car caught on fire. They extinguished it, but he is out of the race. That enabled Pete Hamilton, who was running second at the time, to come in. Now, there was a pit stop that Pete Hamilton made, and it was under, our indication was that Isaac had taken the lead, but official scoring says no. He got out in time to go ahead or maintain his supremacy over Isaac, which was considerable at the time that he went in. So he still has the lead.
Bill, I have Bobby Isaac running that lap at 195 plus miles an hour, so he is standing on it.
Okay. Well, now we have a note that has just come through on the intercom system that upon checking the tape, NASCAR is in debate at this point about the leader of this race. And so we are not going to say anything further about it until we get the official word, but there is a possibility that Isaac is in the lead according to the last report. Then we had Hamilton in the lead, and of course the only way we can give it to you is when it comes from NASCAR. We are on their scoring circuit, and of course have to take that as gospel.
At 180 laps, the information has just come to us from the NASCAR scoring. Piece of paper in front of me says Hamilton has the lead. Isaac is second. However, if Isaac does in fact have the lead over Hamilton, he enjoys 2.1 second lead over Hamilton at this point.
So we'll just stand by and call it as we see it, because we're coming down to the 186th lap, 185 laps. It was Hamilton and Isaac, either one of which, and so we'll just have to wait until they examine the tape. But we do know that we have about 3 laps to go. 188 will be the conclusion of the race. As soon as we find out from NASCAR, we will give it to you officially, but we've had 2 different versions here now, and I hope you'll just bear with us on how it happens. We've had more pit stops than at any other time in a Grand National NASCAR race. And of course, when cars come into the pits, it does put an added burden on the scorers who have to punch in and punch out. And they are going to make a decision on that as soon as they complete the debate. The debate is going on between the scorers. And it is conceivable, of course, when there is this much controversy, that a protest could be filed by either one of the drivers who is said to be not the leader. If Pete Hamilton is indeed chasing Isaac, he's 5 seconds behind. If he is not chasing him, he's 45 seconds in front. It's that simple. And there's Hamilton. And again, I will repeat it. If Bobby Isaac is leading Pete Hamilton, Hamilton has to make up 5 seconds with 1 lap to go. The white flag has been given. And now we will see who gets the checker. Maybe that will give us the clue.
Maybe.
About the only thing we have to go on right now.
I'll bet you that the $100 checks have already been written for the protest, though, both bits, just in case.
Right, here comes Isaac. Now, watch very closely. He didn't get it. He didn't get it, and if the checkered comes out now, there it is. It has to be official now because you saw it with your own eyes.
It dropped in front of Pete Hamilton.
So Pete Hamilton, former Grand Touring ace, wins the second real big one for him. He was a rather surprise winner in the Daytona 500 in February at the Daytona International Speedway. And here he comes in for what seems to be, and I'm going to couch that in perhaps not as definite a language as I normally would, seems to be the leader, and you saw him get the checkered flag. Isaac had a full opportunity to get it from the official flagman, didn't get it. Hamilton did. ABC's Championship Auto Racing live coverage of the Alabama 500 will resume after this message.